do I have your attention? Okay, so in my previous video, I went over how I would do the world's finest timeline in the DCU. And right when I finished editing that video, James Gunn himself actually came out and announced a sequel, or a semi-sequel as he keeps insisting, to Superman titled Man of Tomorrow. And it got me thinking about a theory of what the plot could be. And so I thought I'd make a short, quick little video about that. We know already that it's going to be a team-up film, not a direct sequel. And from what we've gotten from Gunn, it's looking like it's going to be a team-up between Lex Luthor and Superman. And there's been a lot of speculation already that the team-up is going to be against Brainiac. And so my theory kind of plays into that, but I add a little bit of context. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, stick around, and without further ado, let's get it. So I'm pretty sure we've all seen Superman at this point. It was a great film, I had a great time with it. But in Superman, there was actually a controversial plot point concerning Clark's Kryptonian parents and their true intentions for him on Earth. And that kind of got a lot of people speculating. Safe to say it was a very polarizing topic. But the plot point was that Clark's parents actually had sinister intentions for him on Earth, or sinister motives for sending him to Earth. They wanted him to rule, to have a secret harem. They wanted him to lord over the planet and dispatch of anyone who wasn't willing to serve him. I'm trying to quote directly, but this is more of a paraphrase. But yeah, it got a lot of people talking because this isn't what we're used to seeing for Superman in movies, but it's actually been a thing in comics, and even then it's been controversial. But yeah, safe to say, a lot of people, including myself, were left pretty much confused, and a lot of people were angry about it. Gunn got a lot of criticism for making that creative choice. But it also led to a lot of speculation that the message could have been altered or doctored. And Gunn himself in the movie and on Threads confirmed that this wasn't the case. Then we got the digital release and people spotted a headline at the end of the film that confirmed that it was altered. And so it's kind of all over the place right now. But I actually think this was deliberate from Gunn to throw off the sense of what the story could be for his semi-sequel, Man of Tomorrow. If you're on Twitter as much as I am, you'd know the popular theory to explain this confusion is that Brainiac altered the message. But there's never really been a motive given by anyone as to why Brainiac would do so. And I came up with one that I think could play into the story of Man of Tomorrow, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. So keeping the contents of the message in mind, I'm now going to pivot over and talk about the DCAU for a while, specifically Superman the Animated Series. So in Superman the Animated Series, we actually find out that Brainiac is indirectly responsible for the destruction of Krypton. Brainiac was aware that Jor-El's findings were right, but lied to the council to make Jor-El look crazy. We all know Brainiac's obsession with having the rarest collection of worlds. As his popular saying is, knowledge is much more valuable when it's rare. And so that kind of plays into his future interaction with Kal-El, Superman, where he tries to get Superman to join his side. Now, Brainiac actually confesses this to Jor-El, Clark's father, his Kryptonian father, and Clark's father then proceeds to send Clark to Earth. So this is how I think it could play out in the DCU, keeping the events of the DCAU in mind. So in the DCU, Clark's parents send him to Earth with a message, but the message gets damaged in transit as we're told in the film. So my theory is that the events of Krypton's destruction in the DCU are very similar, if not exactly the same, as they were in the DCU, in that Brainiac had an indirect hand in the destruction of Krypton. Jor-El would find out about this before Krypton is destroyed. Brainiac would confess it to him, and so that would inform Jor-El's message to Kal. So my theory is that the message, the original message to Kal, actually contained crucial information from Jor-El and Lara on how to defeat Brainiac. So the contents of the message that we saw in the film are actually taken out of context, and when put in their proper context would be warnings to Cal of Brainiac's ambition for Earth. They'd also warn Clark of Brainiac's potential attempts to entice Clark into joining Brainiac's side by presenting the prospect of lording or ruling over the planet and dispatching of anyone who doesn't serve him, taking as many wives as he can, and all the rest of the stuff that we heard in the message in the film. So these are all things that Brainiac has cut up to make it seem like Clark's parents wanted him to do that, but those are actually descriptions of Brainiac's ambitions, as well as his potential attempt to entice Clark into joining his side. What would happen is that Brainiac would actually have tried to get Jor-El to join his side back on Krypton and would have offered Jor-El the prospect of saving him. Jor-El would obviously refuse and then would warn Cal of the same thing in the message. This would lead into Brainiac's true intentions. For example, like why he didn't destroy Cal's ship. It would be because he views Cal as a potential powerful ally, which is why he wouldn't destroy the ship. Now, Brainiac's plan would be multi-layered with multiple contingencies. The fact of the matter is that his main plan is to try to entice Cal into joining his side. But if that doesn't work, that's what the message is for. And so in the message, why doesn't he destroy the message entirely, you may ask? Well, because destroying the message I think would inform a sense of vigilance in Cal. If Clark doesn't know where he's from, it might inform a sense of vigilance of otherworldly threats. Maybe whoever sent him may come back and Clark could be some sort of pariah to the destruction of Earth by another race. And so Brainiac intentionally keeps the message intact and picks out the parts of the message that would be conducive to keeping Clark in the dark about his actual plans, which is the first half of the message, in which Cal's parents tell him about being a good man and helping people and all this other stuff. Without cutting the rest of the message out, instead he damages the message, so Clark thinks the message was damaged in transit. Because cutting out the second half of the message would also be pretty suspicious. You know, there could be questions like who cut out the rest of the message? What does the rest of the message say? And again, that would inform a sense of vigilance, which isn't really conducive to Brainiac's plans. So that's why he doesn't just cut out the second half of the message. And so I already explained that Brainiac has multiple failsafes. So what if some way, somehow, Clark was able to obtain the second half of the message? And so that is why Brainiac would actually cut up the second half of the message and then damage it. If Clark somehow finds the second half of the message, it would be a cut up version, which would take out of context what his parents actually wanted to say. It would cut out the crucial information about destroying Brainiac and would make it seem like Clark's parents were evil. That way, the only perceived threat to Clark is himself and following along with his parents' alleged intentions for him on Earth, which Clark would have dealt with by the end of the movie, which he did deal with. That way, Clark is still in the dark about what other threats are out there, about the threats of Brainiac specifically. And so that would lead into the events of Man of Tomorrow, where Brainiac would probably attack and Clark would not know anything about it, and so naturally he wouldn't be prepared, which would prompt a team up with Lex Luthor. And that's how the events of the movie start. And so yeah, this is just my theory on what the plot of Man of Tomorrow could be, and also explaining the confusion surrounding the message from his parents in the first film. I added Brainiac's motives. I think it makes sense, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I just want to make this video real quick. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and without further ado, peace.